Hi, and welcome to the weekly show this week. Wow, on a personal and professional level, I am very excited to bring you this discussion. My guest this week can only be described as an industry veteran and expert. And I will tell you, I said it, on a personal level, this man literally changed my outlook on the whole crisis and what we're dealing with. So I'm excited to bring this conversation to you. I'm looking forward to having the conversation myself, but more on that in a minute. So, announcements this week. I'm delighted to announce that we've increased our normal capacity for virtual events from 1,000 people to 2,500. Listen, what this means is we will guarantee, all the interactivity, everything that you come to expect from a premium SpotMe experience. We guarantee that up to 2,500 participants. We can go higher. Don't worry about it. If you have an audience that's higher, come speak to us. It just requires a discussion. And I promise you, the team, your SpotMe representative, will be super transparent about what can and cannot happen. So 2,500, the normal capacity limit has been increased. The team are expanding it all the time. Come have a discussion if you have a limit, an audience bigger than that. We can probably still do it and work something out, but just requires that discussion. Okay, enough of the announcement. This week, I wanted to show you, listen, you all get emails from the weekly show twice a week if you've registered here. And if not, then you've been getting them twice a week to register, or you've seen our social media posts. Doesn't matter. What I want to show you this week is the email functionality within Backstage. So what I've done is I've logged into my workspace here, my event, my campaign. And first of all, I'm going to head to the design tab and then emails. And what you see here is I have a bunch of pre-templated emails. Now, the reason that I have this is because I simply chose the digital experience template before I created this workspace. And with every template, you get a bunch of emails, a bunch of things that are already filled in, like sessions, notifications, feed posts, and in this case, emails, right? There's a bunch of templates already there for me to edit and look at. And you have two basic options with emails. You can either create the email yourself in Backstage, or you can build it elsewhere and import the HTML. And we'll have a brief look at both of those. Now, if I click into an email template that already existed, what you can see is there's a subject line. Obviously, this is the email subject line. There's the to box. And what you're going to want to do here is use one of the merge tags available for email. Now, there's two available. The first one, email, that you see here. So you see the parentheses and then email. That's for when you're importing a list from another reg platform or just from Excel. You're importing all those users into Backstage. They live elsewhere and you know who they are, and they're coming to Backstage as your audience. You use the parentheses email. Now, you've all signed up for the weekly show, and that's what's called our public reg, or registration within Backstage. And if you have that set up like we do on the weekly show, you're going to use the provided email merge tag. That's important because it tells Backstage literally to look in a different place, the registration place for their email, okay? The third thing that we can do right away is the from line. So you can see here, Tom from SpotMe, which is what you get with the weekly show. That can be anything, by the way, and that's what appears next to the subject line in the email, in your email inbox. Now, this is important as well. Right now, by default, emails set up as no reply, but you can easily change that to your own email address, marketing at, support at, whatever that looks like. And then, as you can see here, there is an email predefined, and I have all the usual. If I was building this on my own, I would use these tools here: text tools, insert and edit a link, images, alignments, bullet points, tables for structure, text color, font family, font sizes. Here's a couple of important extras though. Like with any email tool, you're going to want to make use of the data merge tag. So you can insert participant details, whatever you're asking for or have collected, you can insert that into your emails as well. Obviously, the most important, or I shouldn't say most important, the most commonly used are going to be the name merge tags. So that's something to keep an eye out. You can also provide a link directly to your event, your experience, your campaign, whatever that is. You can provide a link into it. So in MailChimp for the weekly show, we ask people to register and it sends them to the registration form. When we're sending emails to all of you as part of the already registered weekly show, what we like to do is give you access to your personal experience, right? And the reason we do that is because we want you, for some experiences, we want you to create a profile with your photo, your name. We want you to connect with people. We want you to have a long-term experience that's personal to you. So this web app link is literally that. It's your personal access to the experience itself. So a very important merge tag to get to know. And then finally, I can toggle full screen if I so choose to, if I find that easier to work with. And I can also look at the source code, which is very important for the second option, which is creating the email in another tool and importing the HTML. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so we have, I imported this email from MailChimp this morning in preparation. So right away, I am okay to go. Now, there's a couple of things when you import the HTML. And again, what I've done is gone into the source code and pasted over the original HTML with my pre-prepared HTML file. And once I do that, I get this similar looking template. It can be anything you like, right? I mean, you create it in an email tool. It can be whatever you want. Couple of tips. The merge tags in MailChimp, and I'm sure in a lot of other tools, are different to Backstage. So you're going to want to preserve them with Backstage in mind. So I'm going to get rid of the MailChimp merge tool, merge link, and I'm going to add in a Backstage specific one, but preserving that first name structure. And you can see that they're just different, right? And so I need to make sure that that's the case. So that's the first tip. The second tip is when you have on the bottom, you might want to change this text here. And you may also want to, what we do for the weekly show is we ask people to reply to the email to unsubscribe, right? So we can keep track of them. And it's a nice personal way to unsubscribe. So just make sure that your footer is correct as well and relevant. And also all your merge tags that you've imported as part of your HTML template. Now, obviously, as you get used to this, you can build it with the Backstage merge tags. And if you go to our knowledge base, you can find all the merge tags there and build it in preparation for using in Backstage if you like. Okay, now, when it comes to sending this email, what I actually do is go to content and users. And because this is a demo workspace, it's only me here. So I click on me, I send an email, and I choose my email. It's the come join us. You can send to everybody. Obviously, there's only me. Uninvited, inactive, activated, selected, and targeted. Now, targeted is if you've pre-set up different groups, populations within your audience, and you want to target a specific group. For now, I'm just going to send to the selected user, and I just hit send, and then it sends that email. This isn't a production space, so it actually doesn't send the email, but you get the idea, right? And it's that simple. I built the email. I can either build it myself in Backstage, import a HTML, and then I send it by going to content and then user tab and defining how I want to send it. And that's emails in Backstage. Now, my guest this week, the topic of, it feels like the topic just because I think we think about it as a roller coaster. It feels like things are open, things are closed, things are open, things are closed. We make progress, we don't make progress. And I found it tough to personally and professionally to get my head around that. I'm delighted to be joined by Martin Sirk, He is the founder of Sirk Serendipity, a consultancy, and the former CEO of the International Convention and the ICCA, the International Convention. I'm going to struggle. I've lost my notes. Where are they? The International Convention, Congress and Convention Association. I'm sorry, Martin, I completely messed that up. You can put me right. He's the former CEO of the International Congress and Convention Association, and I can't think of anyone more qualified to help us with this. So welcome to the show, with my huge apologies for messing that up, Martin. Welcome to the show.
Tom, you're not alone. Almost nobody who either works for ICCA or is an ICCA member knows what it stands for. It is, of course, International Congress and Convention Association, but everybody knows it as ICCA. I'm
hugely embarrassed that I was practicing that all morning. There we go. The live moment. You just can't replace the live moment.
Yeah.
Right. Welcome to the show. Listen, wow. It just feels like we get one step forward and two steps back. And I, for one, have been riding the roller coaster, and I think it's time to get off. So talk us through, before we get on to the real meat and potatoes, I think it's important to acknowledge the initial reaction and what was happening initially, because I think it does lend itself very well to the further conversation. So how would you describe, like, literally how people reacted? What was the mentality of people? How would you describe that?
I think the biggest challenge is that we have tried to find comparators with what's going on. So if you're my age, you look back to dot-com crisis of 2001, you look back at 9/11, look at SARS, you look at H1N1, and of course the global financial crisis of 2008, 2009. But this is not like any of those. It's global, it's every sector in the world, it's not got an end date to it. Yeah. It's a bit like that Icelandic volcano if it had gone off in 5 continents at the same time.
Right.
We don't know when it's going to stop erupting. And from day to day, the winds blow it in a different direction. And so, of course, there's huge uncertainty. And I think that uncertainty is what gives the general feeling for the background we're working in. The second thing is that many people are still in great denial over this. There's a it'll all be over by Christmas syndrome, a bit like what was apocryphally said about the First World War. A couple of months, no problem, all over. This is a big one. This is going to take a long time. There have been some fundamental damages done to very key parts of the international order, and it's going to take quite some time until we're back in any sort of normality. And people are always asking the question, well, when's it going to get back to normal? And the answer is the pandemic, our responses to the pandemic, the speed with which vaccines and therapeutics come on stream, those will be the determining factors. We can do all we want to have safe venue protocols, but that is necessary but totally insufficient for bringing back the confidence.
Right. As we've been talking over the last couple of weeks, you keep pointing out to me these like the countries that have like opened a little bit, tried something, and then shut their doors and retracted. And an example of that was Australia and New Zealand, right? That had that little travel bubble, and then the people came from New Zealand, they landed, I think, in Sydney, and then immediately got on a plane to Melbourne that wasn't part of the travel bubble. This is just going to keep happening, right? This is people.
I'm more optimistic on that front.
Okay.
I think that countries which can get it down close to zero, if they have cultural trust between those countries, they can pretty swiftly put some protocols together that can make it pretty safe to travel. We're seeing Hong Kong and Singapore doing it. Japan and Korea are talking. Obviously, there's New Zealand, Aussie tie-up. And what you see is there's a certain knowledge already and a certain level of trust that allows that to happen. Now, when you've got a number of those, then they can start to connect with each other.
Yeah.
But at the moment, we don't have any examples of 3 countries doing it together, or 4 countries. So it's going to take time. And as you rightly say, it only takes one outbreak. and that can knock things back. I describe there is no magic ratchet. And what so many people talk about is as though it's a ratchet effect, that once you move things to a certain level, it'll stay at that level and then move to the next one above. But the thing can move both ways. There's no reason why it has to just keep moving in one direction.
It's so true, and often getting frustrated with lockdowns, or it can lead you to just focus on the optimistic side, and rightly so, right? I don't want to knock anyone's optimism here, but there is a tendency maybe not to look at things realistically, or you go too far one way. Yeah. As we think about, okay, let's talk about it, right? If we think about events and meetings coming back, you talked about trust, right, on a regional country level, but what are some of those fundamental drivers that means that events and meetings will come back? Like, what are those drivers?
Let's talk about the good side.
Yes.
The side which, I would have described myself before the pandemic as an eternal optimist. I generally see the good side of things and the good opportunities. It's taken a while to dig down and actually find those this time around, but there are some. And I think it goes to the fundamentals. It's not about what's on the surface, it's the things that are really driving things. Now, the first point is that meetings essentially are a tool for solving stuff, whether those are scientific questions, healthcare, business, the problems that the delegates have got, the problems that the companies got, the problems that the organizers got, or that the sponsoring stakeholders have got. So we are now obviously in a situation where there are more challenges, more problems, more issues that need solving at a international, at a pan-societal level than ever we've faced before. And meetings are going to be part of that solution, because to deal with genuinely international, genuinely complex problems, you cannot solve complexity over Zoom. No. Zoom works brilliantly for transactional and simple one-way information passing. But complexity, serendipity, involving lots of different moving parts, we don't yet, and we won't have for some considerable time, online tools that can really solve that. So I think from that point of view, there's going to be more demand for meetings. Yeah. Purpose-driven, solution-driven meetings than ever before. I think those meetings which were simply gatherings of the clan, I'm not so confident about that. I think delegates are going to want to have very powerful reasons why they should take the risks to go there. The second big driver, I think, is that lifelong learning is going to accelerate in terms of its necessity. If you want to be successful as an individual in your career, in your life, it's going to become a much bigger part of who we are as people. It's not going to be the MBA that you add on 20 years after you got your first degree spread over a couple of years. People are going to be doing what the top tech people in Silicon Valley were doing, where they would allocate a quarter of their time to educating themselves, because they knew that the stuff they had been taught was out of date. The same thing is going in healthcare, in science, in all these areas. You've got to educate yourself. This is going to become a norm for anyone who's in any type of business that requires intellectual input. Yeah. Because stuff is moving so fast, it's going to be incredibly difficult to keep up with that. And of course, you can do some of that online, inevitably. Yeah. But the really cool stuff, the stuff that isn't readily available, you'll pick up from those interesting conversations, from the group discussions, from experiential workshops and training. So I think that's another big driver. Yeah. The third one is actually, ironically, that thing I said about people not wanting to get together because of, it's the tribe. Actually, that tribal, communal, ritual, psychological deep need is not going away. It's been there since we were swinging through the trees and moving on to the planet. Yes. It was there when the first meeting places and temples were built. That's not going to go away. So even though some people have always said, since I've been first in the industry back in the late 80s, that technology is going to take over face-to-face, that always ignores the importance of the stuff that happens at meetings that efficiency experts are trying to get rid of. There's certain stuff that happens at meetings that is very ritualistic, and it's often seen as the waste of time, and that you can cut half an hour or half a day out of the meeting in order to, and by eliminating that. But that is the stuff that actually creates the bonds, creates the trust, creates the informal networks, allows the transfer of tacit knowledge, and it's extraordinarily powerful. So that will come in. So that's three big drivers. The fourth one that I think will re-emerge later than those three is the whole concept of competitive advantage. When companies decide that holding a face-to-face meeting is going to give them that little edge above their competitors, corporate meetings will come flooding back. At the moment, they're finding workarounds and stuff that will get the business done, that will allow them not to fall back too far. If they're in the electronic section, of course, or if they're in virtual meetings, or if they're in anything to do with online, they've got huge opportunities. They're not too worried about it. But the moment that one of them starts this and they gain a competitive edge from it, you'll see the others going back, because nobody can afford to lose a competitive edge. And meetings, of course, are fantastic for building community with your suppliers, your partners, your clients.
Yeah.
So those are the reasons I'm pretty optimistic in the longer term.
Okay. Well, let's tap into that then. So what are maybe some of the reasons you're less optimistic?
Okay. The downside, the negative pessimism side. My biggest disappointment, bar none, has been the retreat to nationalism that the pandemic has brought out. Yeah. It feels like international collaboration and cooperation, and even looking at what other people do, has gone to the wayside. Yeah. And that's profoundly depressing for me, who's spent most of my working life in international environments. Either working for an international organization, bringing different countries, cultures, business types together, or whether I've been stimulating other associations and encouraging them to do that and advocating for how powerful that is for societal progress. The fact that every government has got its own tame national experts. They've got their own exceptionalism that determines why their route is the route that is perfect. And we've run simultaneously more large-scale experiments in terms of how to deal with a pandemic than one could imagine. Yes. And yet how many countries are rigorously looking at what really worked, which ones have done well, where if someone was doing well, something went wrong and it didn't work quite as well as it was expected. We have all the data, we have all the case studies, we have all the evidence, and yet we do not see the collaborative thinking. My dream would be that 4 or 5 European countries would get together and say, okay, we're in roughly the same status of suppression or aiming for elimination. Let's get out of this in lockstep. Mm-hmm. And as we go out, we'll learn from each other. We'll open up our borders to each other in tandem, instead of each country saying our border control is about keeping foreigners out and keeping us safe. International businesses, including tourism and meetings, cannot work until both the host destination and the source destinations are at the same level of suppressed low-level pandemic. So that's my big level of optimism. But it's very pragmatic. There's a lot of pragmatic stuff. We're going to see lots more friction in travel, come what may. It may be in health passports. It's going to be in longer operational delays. It's going to be in lack of trust. It's going to be in barriers. If friends of mine have flown to the States, married to Americans but not American, their ESTA visas were cancelled at the airport before they got on their flight. Luckily, they found out in time to present their marriage certificate, which they needed in order for that to be reinstated. Otherwise, they would have been thrown off the flight. Wow. So this sort of stuff was unknown to many of us. Yeah. We got on a plane like we were going to the corner shop. Yeah. I don't think it's that is going to take a long time, if ever, to get back to where we were. It's a bit like after 9/11. You know, the level of security is never going to ratchet back to what it was pre 9/11.
Right.
The same thing is going to apply to the general level of friction in air travel going forward.
Yeah, wow. It's as someone who has their family on another continent, yeah, that's a realism I definitely need to get used to. Okay, so if we boil the optimism, those 4 critical points, right, versus or factors versus maybe the less optimistic, pessimistic view of what's happening and the length of time it will take. What are maybe some of the opportunities? Because I know there are a few. What should people be thinking about?
Let's think about how it's going to recover first, because there's a lot of stuff that we don't know and cannot know, but there are some things that you can work out what's going to happen. So everything's definitely going to be hybrid going forward, not least because we've now discovered how we can reach much, much larger audiences, and we're learning gradually how to engage with those larger audiences. Yeah. No company or association is going to want to give that up, except for very, very small numbers of meetings where the exclusivity, and those will almost be meetings where people are forced to lock their phones away before they go into them. That's the meeting. There's going to be space for that. Yeah. So that's going to happen, but also hybrid because it's an insurance policy. If the virus is still around, if the vaccine, when it comes, isn't a panacea, and if it needs to be renewed or changed every year, if things move back and don't ratchet up, then you need that insurance for being able to go online if you have to change from face to face. Yeah. The second thing is it's going to be a very slow, disjointed, uneven recovery. Because countries are in a different state, they're going to come out of it slowly. Yes. And the impact of that is going to mean that the first meetings that come back are going to be local. Only then are we going to see national meetings, which draw people from all corners of larger countries. We're going to start seeing meetings between trusted countries, these pairs and 3s and 4s. Yep. Then we're going to see regional meetings, and then we're going to see international. The first regional area that I reckon is going to come out of this is going to be Asia Pacific. I mean, with the exception of the Philippines and Indonesia, which are still suffering pretty badly. Malaysia is having a bit of an up and down time. Most of the countries across that region have done a really, really good job of suppressing the pandemic, and in some cases, pretty much eliminating it. So you can see that there's potential there, and there's huge amounts of potential business reasons and scientific reasons for getting together. So I think that when we see regional recover, that's going to be the first place we see it. Focus point. We'll also see places like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Bahrain. They'll start to align more with Asia Pac than they will with Europe. Yeah, interesting. Just because Dubai especially had very, very strict lockdown conditions, so they got things suppressed. They're at the same sort of play as, say, a Singapore. So you can easily see the stuff happening there. Yeah. We can also see that trade shows have come back first, because that's a transactional type of environment, and you can therefore set up these protocols which keep people at their distance. You don't have that necessity for close interaction that you have with a lot of scientific, healthcare, business conferences, where it's the little huddle of the private meeting that's the real value, not sitting in the room listening to the guy who's on stage. His speech you can listen on a recording anyway. Yeah, that's not what drives people there. It's who else is there, who can I have private time with, how can I get those discussions. That's much more difficult to manage. So trade shows, then the next one through is actually going to be association meetings. Okay. Because there's already a strong community engagement. There's a necessity in many cases for associations to make money through their events, whereas corporates, it's a cost. Yep. There's something about association meetings. They've always been the most resilient sector in every downturn. Always come back first, always come back strongest. Any destination that underestimates the power of association meetings at
their peril. And we even saw that on our end because associations were literally the first to come through our doors for virtual virtual platforms. So that makes sense. Listen, we have run out of time. It's so fast. I didn't even get to all my questions, but let me ask you this. I know you have a ton more thoughts and insight. Where do people connect with you? How do they connect with you?
Easiest way to see the things I'm writing and these type of events and programs I'm running is to just follow me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm not difficult to find. There's only one Martin Sirk there as far as I'm aware, and certainly only one with this jacket. And also my Twitter handle is @Sirk Serendipity, all
Great.
one.
We will include those.
Link to the material I'm reading, the stuff that I'm finding. But yeah, I would like to end by saying, I am optimistic. I think that meetings will change the format. Some of them won't look the same, but physical face-to-face meetings are not going to suddenly disappear because there are great tech solutions. And in fact, I think a lot of the groupings, these new communities that are being formed online are going to eventually evolve into associations of a new type altogether. There's kind of proto associations, and they will want to meet.
I like that a lot. Listen, thank you so much. I know there's a ton more. We could probably do another half an hour right now, but in fairness to our guests, we'll end here. Thank you so much for your time, and goodbye. Thank you for watching live and on demand. Thank you.
Yep. Bye, everybody. Thank you very much, Tom.
Bye. Bye.